I think e-commerce is the biggest unfair advantage of our era, and I'm shocked at, how few people are fully understanding it or tapping into it, because it is life altering if you can figure it out.
Okay, welcome back to the Marketing Playbook presented by Value and Measured. Here you'll take away 3 game-winning marketing plays every episode to take back to your team. I'm your host, Mark Friedman, and my career has been focused on direct-to-consumer marketing, direct mail, physical retail, and digital commerce. This is episode number 123, and my guest is Marissa Rodriguez. I became aware of Marissa through her great posts on LinkedIn. She's held a number of interesting digital commerce roles in her career prior to starting her own consultancy through experience. She's helping entrepreneurs through her hands-on experience, as well as a host of free online playbooks for how to grow a company. She also offers what is called the Accelerator Program, where she provides a deep dive into your e-commerce business. As you'll hear, she lives in Greece and living her best life. Enjoy the show. Before we get started, a quick thank you as always to Max Branstetter of the WA Business Growth Podcast for producing this episode. You can reach him at max@maxpodcasting.com to help bring your podcast to life. Let's open the playbook. Ready, break. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Marketing Playbook podcast. Today, I'm joined by Marissa Rodriguez. Corporate life was not enough for Marissa. After losing her job 10 years ago, Marissa chose freedom and a highly unorthodox path to success. That leap of faith took her from being a chief marketing officer and chief operating officer for e-commerce brands to building a business that's helped her clients generate over $100 million in e-commerce revenue. This is how she did it, and in short order, she'll tell us right from herself how she did it. A solo trip in 2021 turned into a life-changing move by December. Marissa planned a vacation to Greece to visit for a friend's birthday and then never left. She applied for her visa and moved permanently to Greece after growing to appreciate the slower, more relaxed pace of life. Now she has the advantage of being 7 to 10 hours ahead of her clients in North America, proving that you don't need to be in the same room or even the same continent to make an impact. She lives life on her own terms while putting others on the right path to do the same. In 2024, Marissa launched Through Experience, an online platform where she shares the wisdom that shaped her success. Through Experience is about helping entrepreneurs break free from traditional paths and achieve freedom by mastering e-commerce like she did. For Marissa, success isn't just about numbers. It's about being in control of your own life and your own destiny. She's created an online community of entrepreneurs who she's helping achieve freedom on a daily basis. And her mission is simple: help entrepreneurs build online businesses that support their lives. She believes that with the right mindset and tools, anyone can create their own path to success. If you're looking for real growth and guidance to live life on your terms, Marissa is the mentor for you. Wow, Marissa, that's a lot to talk about. Congratulations on your successes.
Thank you. That was quite fun to sit through and listen to you talk about me like that.
Well, it's really nice to meet you. And for the folks that are listening, we're recording this mid-May 2025. And Marissa is, in fact, in Greece. She's at 6 p.m. Local time. And as we were talking, just as we got started, I asked her if she was a 9 p.m. dinner time person now that she's European. And she acknowledged that's when she's having dinner.
True story.
All right, let's get started. Like we do on all of our shows, we like to get the guests' first story. Where did you grow up, your background, and was there anything perhaps in your background that might have suggested your career would take shape as it has?
Great question. So I was born and raised in San Juan, Puerto Rico, where I spent the first 18 years of my life. And I moved to New York City in August of 2001 to attend the Tisch School of the Arts for acting and the arts. And it was in New York for 21 years after that. Obviously, my first week of college was 9/11, which definitely had a huge impact on me. And I would say that the training from Tisch and the acting training really has served me in so many ways in my life, because fundamentally the first thing that you're really, embarking on or trying to do is step into someone else's shoes and see the world from someone else's perspective and understand the psychology and the behaviors that impact their thoughts and their actions and their choices. I think that that training has helped me a lot in life and in work, obviously.
That was quite a time to come to New York.
Yeah, my mother had just left the city. It was literally like a week later. And I was in NYU, so I was downtown in the center of it. And I think to say that that year, that entire year, right? Because it wasn't just 9/11, it was the fears that occurred after that, the anthrax, walking through, Union Square Park every night and seeing 15,000 people in silence holding candles, like definitely bonded me to New York and definitely shifted my reality hugely.
So early in your career, lots of retail brands, Eli Tahari and C. Wonder, mostly merchandising roles. So how did you kind of move into that from your training?
I went through a huge life crisis of what am I going to do with my life? I decided that acting was not the path for me. I did real estate. I taught dance lessons. By the time I was 23, had had like multiple different careers and got an opportunity to go work in fashion, which in New York, everybody, that's like a highly coveted thing to go work in fashion. And I started at Eli Tahari on the sales team. Was really just in a place where the world was again imploding. 2007, 2008, right? Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, like there was collapse everywhere. And I was sort of looking around, feeling like interested in the things that weren't working for the company, not necessarily trying to get the better accounts, but sort of sitting back, being like, well, why do these accounts not work? What's happening here? And so I started to understand that I could figure out why things weren't working and I could make them better. And so there was a part of that that was merchandising, of course, because I had to understand the kind of product that that customer would want, right? But then another part of that was the sales side of it, which was, but we need to make money here and it needs to be tied to revenue. And so that's what I started doing. I started launching brands for Eli Tahari that were brand new with Nordstrom. We launched a brand that, ended up becoming a $50 million a year business for Tahari. Then I went and I did the same kind of process with brands that weren't working. So they had launched a bunch of diffusion brands, lower mass market brands, and they were failing. And I was like, well, why are they failing? There's always a solution. Why aren't people finding value in this? Like, what are we doing wrong? And so those were the questions that started to percolate in my head, which I then took through my career in merchandising and in sales. But really at the heart of what I was doing, I think it was marketing. I just didn't know it at that time because the marketing teams were really focused on events, which I didn't care about, right? I was like, where's the product? Who's the person? And how do I get the person to care about this product? And so I was always straddling merchandising and sales until I finally was like, oh no, no, this is just marketing. I'm in the wrong vehicle. So that was the shift was in me, but the thought process has been something that's carried me through my entire career, which is how do I make people find value in this? How do I make them care? What do I have to change or tweak? How do I separate myself from everybody else? What can I win at that no one else can win at? And sort of identifying those things and fine tuning them is where I found success for all the brands that I've worked with.
I like hearing the story that you weren't really sure what you wanted to do and that you pivoted along the way because, as I see my own children, I see others, they're so ingrained oftentimes in feeling like they have to figure out what they want to do for the rest of their life when they're 21 years old. And there's so many people that are not ready to determine, what they want to do. And the fact that they do, pivot. So, seeing somebody that's been successful like yourself making those pivots along the way is good learning for folks. As you moved up, you went into a business called Inspired Brands, which was a roll up of, as you called it, fast growing brands. There seems to be a lot of these roll ups, and certainly I'm going to generalize, but more often than not, it feels like these roll ups of smaller brands don't always work. Any thoughts on that?
So the first thing is that in my case, right, I knew in 2009 that e-commerce was where I needed to be in the future, but it took me until 2015 to really go all in with e-commerce. Like I was dabbling wherever I could before then. I was finding opportunities. And so what ended up happening to me is that the business that I was working for shut down abruptly. See Wonder, Chris Birch, we spent 8 months working on a turnaround for this business. We had an incredible like CEO. Everybody felt really great leaving for the holidays. The plan got approved, and then I got a call January 5th, 2015, like just kidding, we're not moving forward, and it's shut down effective immediately. And that moment shifted my life because it was like number one, the first time I didn't have a job as an adult. I was like, oh, now what? But it gave me space to start thinking about what I really wanted to do. And what came to the forefront was I want to go out on my own. I want to create my own business. So that's what Inspired Brands LLC was. I started that in January of 2015 with the intention that I wanted to focus on high growth brands, which coming from wholesale and a retail background, I was squarely focused on direct to consumer. I saw wholesale and retail at the time as sort of like the slow moving business models. And fast growth to me was everything having to do not just with being online, but with having the direct connection to the customer online, right? No third party, nobody else involved. And so that's who I set out to work with in Inspired Brands. Now, your question about roll-ups and why I think that they don't work is because I think that on paper, it sounds really great. Like, oh, we'll just centralize a lot of the common things that people need. So we'll have like a centralized ops team and a centralized marketing team and a centralized, in theory, it sounds like a really great idea. Like we'll have economies of scale. We'll need less people because we won't need individual people on all of these different brands. And we should be able to incubate a bunch of brands like this. And I think the reason it fails is because there's no clear master in terms of who's driving what's the most important thing. And I think that ultimately, all of these companies require different strategy. And when you're trying to sort of like copy paste the same concepts from one into the other, it doesn't always work. And so that's why I think that like the incubator model that was so popular a few years ago, where like everybody was trying to do it, has not had the success that everybody anticipated it having.
Is there one or more people or other things that have been biggest influences for you, early on in your career?
Probably like the world collapsing, Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers collapsing, it made a real, it imprinted on me because that was a moment in my life where every Friday you'd walk into the office and there was a round of layoffs and you didn't know if you were going to be laid off or not. And so what I realized very soon, or very quickly, was I have to be indispensable here or I'm going to be on that list. And I don't have the luxury of waiting for someone to tell me what to do. At the end of the day, the business needs money. And so if I can solve that problem and I can help this business do money and make money, then maybe I'll be safe. And so I think that that mentality has carried through like my entire professional career, where it's been like, I'm always looking at what are the opportunities? How do we grow? How do we scale? How do we make money? Because that has been where I have felt like I can be invaluable to organizations. And that's probably where that came from.
We do a summary at the end of the show, kind of giving three key takeaways for the listeners to either bring back to their personal lives or their professional lives. So I'm always listening as I do the show for those snippets that we can come back to. And, making yourself invaluable, making yourself indispensable within the organization that you're in, certainly is a key thing for people to be thinking about. So that's great. Think your customers are searching for a satin evening gown? Think again. AI search is changing everything. Shoppers are asking, what should I wear to a black tie wedding in Miami? If your catalog is still relying on outdated keywords, your products won't even show up. Valu's AI-powered catalog agent transforms your product data so you stay visible, relevant, and ready for this new era of search. Don't get left behind. Learn more at Valou.com. That is VELOU.com. After Inspired Brands, there was a period, 5 years, also foundational in your career as a CMO for a business. Is it Port and Hall?
Yeah. So actually, Horton Hall is a business that was one of my clients of Inspired Brands. It was a business that I launched for a first-time founder. I met her in 2018. An interior designer by trade, had never had a business or a product business, had a business, now had a product, but didn't have a business model. And together, I built out the business model for her and helped her launch the business and built out the entire team for the business. I only updated LinkedIn because it was important at that moment in time. We were raising capital for the business. But I had been the CMO and COO, right? Because I was also, as I was launching it from day one, there was nobody else with any knowledge. I was also in the operation side, the finance side, the logistics side, everything. That has been one of the gifts from my deciding that I wanted to go into direct to consumer, is that I became very clear in 2015, like I want to launch e-commerce businesses because nothing teaches you like launching from ground zero when there's nothing there and everything needs to be figured out, solved for, and built out. That's how you develop real expertise. And so Port and Hall was the second direct to consumer e-commerce business that I launched. And I still work with them today. That business is doing multiple eight figures.
That's great. You talk about launching businesses, and you've done this now over an extended window of time. If you think back to, the first businesses that you launched and perhaps businesses that you're helping today to launch, what are the most significant differences in launching then versus launching now?
Oh my God, so much. I mean, 2015, 2016, 2017 was really the wild, wild west of direct to consumer. When I talk about the wild, wild west, I mean, Shopify, which is the number one platform, right, for launching an e-commerce business today, was not able to do a lot of the things that it's able to do now. There were not the third-party apps that could do it. Like, for example, I launched a subscription business on Magento in 2017 because Shopify couldn't solve for recurring payments and tokenization, right? When I think back to then versus now it's so much easier. There are so many people solving problems for entrepreneurs. You also have, a really experienced talent force that didn't really exist in 2015 and 2016. Like we were all figuring it out as we went. There were no experts. There was nothing. It was really just, throw a bunch of stuff at the wall. You're going to fail and you're going to spend a lot of time and money and you're going to freak out and then you're going to get smarter and you're going to make better choices and better decisions. Whereas now I feel it's a completely different world. The ecosystem is so much more built up. Yeah, it's night and day from then to now.
So after all of these learnings and foundational experiences in your career, you go off and you start something again on your own called Through Experience. So for those people who are listening that don't know Through Experience, guide us on what that is.
Yeah, so I had a revelation for myself in 2021 while I was in Greece, which was the reality that I was helping a handful of founders and business owners, and their lives have changed as a result of the work that I've done with them, right? The first time founders, first time entrepreneurs that now have multiple seven, multiple eight-figure a year businesses. But there was only so much that I could do one-on-one. And I, kind of was looking around me and looking at the stats of the industry, and the failure rate of e-commerce is really high. It's, 80 to 90% of the businesses out there fail. And I was trying to figure out like, what can I do to give more people the knowledge, the tools, the training, the accountability, like what I've done for few, how do I do for many? And that was the beginning of Through Experience. It's called Through Experience because obviously everything is led through my experience. None of it is theory. None of it was taught to me by anybody. It's the work that I'm actively doing today for clients, or the work that I have been doing over the last 10 years. And the goal is to really serve people at the different stages that they're at. So for, founders that are very early stage, just starting, they'll be programs that they can tap into. And for those that are really ambitious, like me, that are, they know that they're going to hit seven figures and beyond, then we have mentorship, one-on-one programs where we put them through, my method and my approach to direct to consumer e-commerce. So that's what Through Experience is. It's the idea of a community that's going to support all sorts of e-commerce entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs to be better at what they do. And as a result of being better at what they do, have the opportunity to open up more possibilities in your life, design your life, and enjoy your life more. Because I think e-commerce is the biggest unfair advantage of our era. And I'm shocked at, how few people are fully understanding it or tapping into it, because it is life altering if you can figure it out.
When you have clients, at what stage of their life cycle, their maturity of their business, are they coming to you?
I've had clients that have come to me pre-launch, ambitious people who have been like, I want to hit 1 million in my first year. I don't know how to do that. I need you. And I've walked into businesses that were doing 1 million that, 4 years later, we're doing 30 million. So my goal is I like being around high achievers. I like people that want to scale and want to build and want to grow. And so I always say it has much more to do with the mindset of the person than it does with their stage of life, right? You could have someone that's pre-launch but serious about making it happen, and they achieve a lot more than someone else who's been in the game for 5 years.
When clients or potential clients show up at your door, so to speak, are there consistent questions that they seem to have? I hear a lot. I consult. I've been within brands, and what I find so interesting is that you can almost rinse and repeat if you're in roles like you have, or I have. Now I hear the same things over and over again, or I see the same things over and over again, and I always say I don't have all the answers, but I've seen it so many times. Is that what you kind of experience?
Yeah, I definitely think that most people, when they, one of the first questions someone will ask is about paid ads. That's always a big concern, right? And so there's always a conversation about usually explaining how the ecosystem of e-commerce works. My philosophy and my approach. There's confusion around social media and TikTok and going viral and that kind of stuff. But usually most of these people, most of these founders and businesses, actually, we need to take a step back, because oftentimes they're lacking fundamental things in order to really win at paid ads. Their positioning isn't right. They don't understand direct response marketing. Their websites might not be great. There's usually foundational work that has to occur before I'm like, yes, it's time to go spend on Meta or on Google. I'm always like, before we do that, we need a better website. Your positioning is not solid, and we need to change all of your content. But that's a big key. And I think another part that people always want to ask or have questions around is like, well, how much is it going to cost me? Which is a good question to ask, because oftentimes I find that a lot of, especially most founders or first-time founders, underestimate the cost of growth, and they don't necessarily have a proper budget or a proper strategy. And so, that's also usually one of my follow-up questions, where I'm like, well, how much money do you want to make this year? Where's your budget? Where's the strategy? Where have you laid this all out? And usually it's like, oh, well, I was hoping to first make money to then have, a budget for it. And it's like, well, but here it's kind of the opposite. We need to be able to plan to hit that number. We need the inventory. We need to support the paid ads. And so those are usually two of the biggest sticky points, I would say.
I see so often, and this is, I think, kind of what you just said, is that businesses want to get started without the appropriate capital necessary to build their business, whether it be to have inventory or to investment spend in advertising. Do you tend to find that folks understand the concept of first order profitable or not?
No, I think that at first a lot of them don't, and I think at first a lot of them don't have realistic budgets or strategies in place. I think that there's a huge marketing machine right now that's being pushed by, even Shopify, right? Like if you look at Shopify's like homepage, it's like they make it seem like, oh my God, there's just so much money to be had. Like this could be you, like, and it makes it seem so easy and so simple, right? And there's things that are advantageous about ecom. You don't need to have a physical brick and mortar. You don't need to pay rent. You don't need to pay lights. You don't need to pay full-time employees. Like I have clients doing 30 million a year in annual revenue with 0 employees, all contractors. These are all great things. However, like any other business, there is a cost to be in the game of e-commerce, right? And so I think that first order profitability is like a next step of like, we need to get there. But first, it's like, do you have targets? Do you have a forecast? Do you have a plan? Do you have a people plan? Do you know who you need and when you need them and what they need to do? So step one for me is always like vision and strategy work. And then we can get into the nuance of, first order profitable and my philosophy on Meta and Google and paid ads and all that stuff. But that's a second step.
Not sure if your ads are actually driving sales? Measured is the leading marketing effectiveness platform helping enterprise omnichannel brands optimize their media funnel to business outcomes by revealing exactly which ads are working and which are wasting budget. Their AI-powered platform uniquely combines incremental lift testing and media mix modeling to give marketers accurate, always-on performance insights across all media channels. In 2024, Measured drove more than $3.5 billion in incremental sales for its customers, turning their media portfolios from cost centers into growth engines. If you're ready to uncover which ad dollars are truly incremental to your business, talk to the experts at measured.com. You have something called the e-learning platform. What is this, and how do folks access it if they'd like to?
Through Experience has a bunch of free resources. So I have free master classes. I have, my entire Shopify tech stack by volume. I have checklists of what you need to be looking for daily, weekly, monthly in your ecom store. So there's a bunch of freebies, as they're called. And then there's, programs that are on demand, available for people that are really just getting started, for people that are, kind of wetting their toes, so to speak, or maybe they've been in it and it hasn't worked so well for them, but they're not ready yet to really take the larger step of mentorship, of working with me and my team and having us be kind of in your business and literally in all of your business and putting you through 90-day sprints and all that kind of stuff. So there's the e-learning component of it is like all the things that you can access on your own to help enhance your e-commerce knowledge. Because ultimately, the more you understand, the better you'll be. And one of the things that I advocate for is that part of the issue with e-commerce is it's a highly fragmented landscape of specialists and subspecialists that are really like experts at their one area of domain expertise. But someone has to be a generalist. Someone has to understand and orchestrate how everything interconnects, or else it's not going to work. Part of my mission is to try to give everyone at every stage that they're at the tools to become that generalist and have more knowledge and have more information.
I've read through, a lot of your marketing and what you say you can do to help folks. How do you differentiate what you do versus, the many others that are out there trying to help brands?
I think that's a great question. Well, first of all, I don't think there's a lot of people that have launched from day zero and had to build the entire arena up, right? So yes, I'm a marketer, but I always like to give the example of, it's the garden analogy, right? You need a lot of elements to work. And so we need we need finances, we need ops, we need customer service, we need data, we need tech, like everything has to be hitting on all cylinders. And so I think that's one of the things that makes me different, that I've actually been in the trenches as an operator and a marketer in direct to consumer brands. I think the other thing that makes me different is that for the last 10 years, I've been focused solely on direct to consumer. And so my clients in the last 10 years have had no other point of sale. They don't sell on Amazon. They don't sell in retail or wholesale. And so if your website's all you have, you better be really, really good at what you do, right? Or your business isn't going to survive. And so when I come from an e-commerce perspective, I'm talking from like a direct to consumer e-commerce perspective, which is if you have nothing else but this website, you have to learn to be self-sufficient and you have to learn to be able to cultivate your own growth year over year. So I think that that's also something that makes me different from a lot of the people that are out there, because the stakes are not the same. If you have multiple business channels or if you sell in a lot of different places, then you're not looking at your website as this is it, this better work, you know? So I think that also separates me from a lot of other people that are out there. I think there's a lot of specialists like in e-commerce that really are great at what they do, but fundamentally lack an understanding of the whole picture. And so oftentimes some of the advice that they're giving is not the best advice, or it's misleading advice because it sounds really great for this one thing here, but it's not necessarily taking into account all of the implications or ramifications for that. So I think that also separates me from a lot of other people.
There have been a lot of things impacting the economic climate for the last month, knowing that you deal with a lot of early stage companies and perhaps some smaller brands. How is that impacting them?
Been challenging. 2025 has been a challenging year. I've been through this long enough that I can tell you that there's always macro, issues that happen, right? Everything is cyclical. And so, there was a tariff issue in 2020. Some of the brands reacted and they no longer are facing that issue in 2025 because they took care of it when it first reared its head in 2020. Others are, they didn't do it then and they're, looking into doing it now. So everything is cyclical, but I always think like this too shall pass. And when things get difficult, I always advocate for the fundamentals. I always advocate for less is more. I always advocate for don't try to do everything, just win at a couple of things online that you need to be really great at. And during challenging times, it just continues to reinforce that.
Briefly touch on the accelerator. I saw a great email that you put out about that. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, so the accelerator is a 12-month mentorship program where literally my team and I are going to come into your business, assess your business. You'll have mentorship calls. You'll have us on Slack. You'll have access to my entire network of specialists that'll come in. And we'll work with you the way that I work with people, which is we'll put you through 90-day sprints of like, what is the most important thing that we need to do in this business in the next 90 days? So it's tangible and there's, outcomes that you can, count on and what has to happen in 30 days, 60 days to make that 90-day sprint. And really, it was born out of, so last year I piloted a 10-week program. I put 67 founders through it, where basically everything I know about e-commerce was in this program. It was an info product. It was 10 weeks. And it was like, there's nothing about my last decade of experience that I am gatekeeping. Everything is here. But what I realized, and I should have known this before, but sometimes you don't really realize it until you get in, is that giving people information is not enough. It is incredibly overwhelming to be given that kind of information. And at the end of the day, what most people need is clarity, focus, and accountability. And so the accelerator is a chance to work with me and my team and have us really focus in a business. And what we can do in 90 days is huge. Like what we can do in the course of a year is massive. And so I'm really excited about it because what I love is growth. And what I love is to see that revenue line climb and go bigger and bigger. And so the accelerator is going to give us a chance to be really hands-on, really strategic. And my goal is to be that strategic partner for brands. So, you're trying to get to 1 million, then 5 million, then 10, then 20, then 50. Like we've been there, we've done that. And we can really be that partner that guides you through that growth. So I'm really excited.
Maybe this dovetails into that. So, looking back on the journey that you have had, what are you the most proud of?
I've been really good at listening to my knowing or my intuition or my gut, right? Sometimes it's taken me longer than I would like to admit to actually take the plunge, but I'm really proud of the fact that I knew e-commerce was something that I really wanted to be in 2009 and then I made that happen. I'm really proud of coming to Greece and realizing that I could actually scale North American brands from here and embodying what I preach, which is, this is an industry that really is location, independent, and it gives you location freedom and time freedom, and it can give you financial freedom. And I think that we're just scratching the surface in terms of what e-commerce can do globally for people. Like how many options it can unlock for people, not only in like having your own business, because this is something I tell people all the time. I'm like, it is the same skill set. Whether you launch your own business, buy a business, or work for a business, you fundamentally need the exact same skill set. It doesn't matter. What other industry gives you that level of flexibility to deploy your skills in whatever way you want over the course of your life? There might be a period where you're like, I don't want to launch something from scratch. I'd rather take something and grow it. Or there might be a period where you're like, I don't even want to own anything. I just want to be of service to businesses in e-commerce. So I think that's what I'm proud of, that I listened to that and I took the plunge, and that here I am.
That's great. You've had a really interesting career. And if I wasn't already in e-commerce, I think after listening to you, I'd want to get into e-commerce.
Aw. That's a huge compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. All right, so we are down to the end of the show. We do a 2-minute drill, 7 questions, 1-word answer. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. A brand that you admire or that inspires you?
Portland Leather Goods.
Favorite app on your phone?
Probably the Uber Eats of Greece.
Last website other than Amazon that you shopped from?
Net-a-Porter.
Something that you're not good at but wish that you were?
Gosh, I don't know. I'm not great at cooking.
That's why you have the Uber Eats of Greece app, right? There you
That's
go.
why.
All right. The charitable organization that you're passionate about?
I wouldn't say an organization, but I do care deeply about giving people access to opportunities and knowledge and education. So I've put in a bunch of people through my programs at no cost. People that, needed it or wrote me an email and or were willing and wanting to barter services, wherever I can open a door for somebody else and give someone an opportunity, then I love that.
If you had one superpower, what would it be?
I think I'm really good at seeing possibilities for a business and for a founder that other people can't see. I know I'm really good at that.
Other than family, what's your most prized possession?
Health. We got nothing without it.
That's great. Where can people reach out to you on social media should they be interested in doing so?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Marissa Rodriguez. They can also reach out at throughexperience.com, info at throughexperience.com. I respond to every email. I see every email. And also on Instagram, Marissa_throughexperience.
Okay, great. Hey, this was really interesting. It was nice to finally meet you. I enjoyed the conversation. Feel free to reach out if I can be helpful.
Thank you so much. I loved our chat.
That's it. Today's game ball goes to Marissa Rodriguez for coming on the Marketing Playbook. To me, today's 3 game-winning marketing plays were as follows. Number 1, losing your job is just a bump in the road. So many people at one moment in time lose their job, and they wonder what they'll do next. From my own personal experiences and what you heard today from Marissa, there is that light at the end of the tunnel. You will find something, and so often it's a better role than what you left behind. Stay positive, continue to network, and your new role will find you. And number 2, make yourself invaluable and indispensable in your current role. We all aspire to perform well. Find those things within your job and company that help to differentiate you from the others. Maybe you have a certain tech capability, or maybe you're the team builder, or the one who best collaborates with other departments, or perhaps you're just willing to put in more hours than anyone else is. Whatever it is, find a way to have your actions show your management that at all costs, they need you as a part of the business. And number 3, if you're a founder or want to be a founder, you need to realize that while you might have a core competency, perhaps a product person or a marketer, whatever it is, you need to master so many other elements of the business. You need to know finance and HR and technology. The list is almost endless. But when you find that your expertise will not cover what you need to do, don't be afraid to reach out for help. Every founder that I speak to mentions that starting and running their business is much harder than they ever expected it to be. Thank you, Playbook marketers, for listening to another episode. If you want to check out more pages of the Marketing Playbook, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast spot and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, the devil is in the details.